Welcome back to SNS Grills. I'm Mike with the Everyday Barbecue YouTube channel, and today I'm going to show you a delicious recipe for some country style ribs, and it's coming up right now. Once again, welcome back to the channel, everybody. We really appreciate having you here, and if you're not subscribed yet, consider doing so by hitting that button down there. Let's get into today's recipe. So country style ribs. Now country style ribs can come in bone-in or boneless. We're gonna be doing the bone-in version today, but you can also find these, depending on where you are, in the boneless version, which is typically cut from the pork shoulder. The bone-in version is cut from the first few rib bones. These are nice and meaty, large ribs. They have nice marbling, and they are absolutely delicious when cooked properly. And we're gonna show you exactly how to do that today. Now with most of our recipes here on the channel, this starts with a dry salt brine. So the day before, you wanna go ahead and unpackage these and coat these with about 1/2 teaspoon per pound of kosher salt. Keep in mind, if you're using table salt, that equation will be cut down to 1/4 teaspoon per pound. Or you can just be like me and salt this the way you would any other piece of meat. Now make sure you coat all sides, set these on a rack, on a tray, and then get them into the refrigerator overnight. When you take them out of the fridge the next day, you'll see they have a much nice deeper red color. This dry salt brine is gonna help to denature the proteins in the meat, which is gonna help tenderize it, and it's also gonna provide a very nice tasty bite through and through. That salt will pull moisture from the meat, and it will all soak back into the meat. This will also help generate a very nice crust on the outside. Mine are all brined, so now it's time to hit these up with some rub. We're gonna be using a combination of our two rubs today, Rocky's rub and the Not Just for Beef rub. These do not contain any salt, so we can be very, very generous with them. All the salt flavor we're gonna get comes from that dry salt brine that we did overnight. So we're gonna start with a nice light coating of olive oil. This is just gonna help our rub to adhere to the meat. Now we just need to go ahead and make sure that's covered. Now we're going to generously apply our rub to the outside. I really love this flavor combination of the Rocky's rub and the Not Just for Beef. It'll give you a nice savory and sweet flavor. And with the coarse nature of this rub, it really provides a great crust on the outside. Want to make sure we cover all sides. Now these are all set for the cooker. We're going to be doing this cook out on the Slow N Sear Kamado today at a temperature of 250 to 275 degrees Fahrenheit. Now we'll be using the Slow N Sear Kamado in Slow N Sear mode today. So I have the Slow N Sear in place. I also have the water reservoir in place, although we're not going to be cooking with water today. And I have my drip and griddle in place to make cleanup very, very easy. I'll be monitoring temperatures today with the SNS 500 remote thermometer. To set the cooker up for that cook temperature, you'll simply start with a little bit of lump coal on one corner of the Slow N Sear, light your fire starter, and give those coals a few minutes to get started. Now once those coals get going, go ahead, close the lid, and open up your vents to allow the cooker to begin to come up to temperature. Once you get within about 75 or 100 degrees of your target temperature, start choking back those vents until you get it dialed in perfectly. Now here's what my final vent settings look like, although keep in mind there are variables to this, so yours may be a little bit different. Now you can go ahead and fill the remainder of the Slow N Sear with unlit lump coal. And now that we have our temperatures dialed in, there's nothing left to do but to get these country style ribs on the indirect side of the cooker and allow these to begin cooking. We'll check on these in just a little bit. We are now 1 hour into this cook. Let's take a look at these country style ribs. Now you can see we've got some beautiful bark forming here on the outside. They're sitting at about 125 degrees Fahrenheit right now, internal temperature. I do have a probe in the largest one in the center. So we're just gonna continue to let these cook. As soon as this bark is fully set, we're gonna go ahead and move on to the braising stage. I'll see you then. About another 2 hours has gone by, and we are finally at the stage where we need to get these into a pan and begin the braising process. Now these country style ribs did hit the stall, and for those of you new to cooking, grilling, smoking, let me explain really quickly what the stall is. The stall is that point in time when the meat hits a certain temperature and it starts to release moisture. When that happens, you can actually start seeing the meat temperature go backwards. In this case, I was about 155 degrees Fahrenheit. It went back to about 150 to 151 degrees degrees and then started to climb. Once you see that temperature start to climb again and the meat's starting to break through the stall, that's usually right around the time when you want to start checking to see if your bark is set. The way you can tell is by touching the outside. If none of the rub comes off, there's your sign that it's ready for braising. Your bark is set. Setting that bark is the most important part of this cook. So now that it's set, let's get this into a braising liquid. We're gonna be using a foil pan. I'm gonna transfer all these into the foil pan and add some barbecue sauce that I thinned out with a little bit of apple cider vinegar. Thinning that sauce out will help to get that sauce to penetrate into the meat and add some additional flavor. We'll toss in a couple pads of butter. Now we're gonna cover this with foil, get it back on the cooker, and let this go until we get this tenderized exactly where we want it. That's typically going to happen between 195 and 203 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going to keep a close eye on that. Now at this time you can go ahead and stir up those coals a bit and crank up the vents just a little bit to raise the temperature to finish this cook off and prepare for the sear. If you need to add any coals, you can do so now. I'll bring you back when it's time to sear these off. About another hour and 15 minutes has gone by and I did temp these. They're all sitting between 198 and just over 200 degrees Fahrenheit. So we are now gonna sear these off for 30 seconds aside to get that beautiful char flavor. We'll plate them up and I'll see you inside when it's time for the taste test. So this cook took about 4 hours and 15 minutes. Keep in mind, it could be a little more, a little less for you. It depends on just a few different variables, size of the ribs being one of the big ones. Now you can see the bone pull back here. It's very traditional when you cook ribs, so same thing happens here with these country style ribs. And my kitchen smells absolutely incredible right now. We've got the tenderness, we've got a gorgeous sear on the outside, and I cannot wait to dig into this. Cheers, everybody. Intense flavors there. So I'm getting that pepperiness from the rub, salt through and through the entire bite, the nice char on the outside, and these are so tender. You can see how easily these will separate from the bone. So this cook was easy, and you can see that all the little extra effort that we put in shows up in the end result, and that's what makes these over the top good. So remember, till next time, 2 zones are better than 1, and I'll see you on the next video.